Before we get started, I want you to take a second to check on where your shoulders are. A lot of us get anxiety and we hold it right here in our shoulders. And I feel my shoulders creeping up towards my ears, tensing together in my back. So we try to let them back down. You might notice that your hands have formed themselves into fists against your own will. Try to let them go. Or that you're holding tension in your hips and thighs, that if you just shake your legs a little bit, will start to dissipate. It is reasonable to be anxious. It is really, really normal to respond to a time in which we can't yet know a really big thing, where we can look at all the polls that we want and then remember who answers their landline telephone, or even, in fact, has one. It's good to shake the anxiety out of your body, even if it is normal to have it in your brain. It'll be good in these coming days to practice grounding yourself, to practice getting back to you and your connection to the earth, to yourself, to one another. I think of hope as something you practice. There are a lot of different ways to think about hope. Some people think of it as this ephemeral light thing that comes upon you, something easy and clear. Emily Dickinson wrote that hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. I've heard it in the chillest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me. This is not my experience of hope. I do not experience hope as a little bird that arrives and never asks anything of me. I experience hope as more like a knockdown, drag-out fight with myself, with the universe, as something I believe in and also have to fight for. That comes to me as a natural reflection of the world as I see it and requires me to dig through the dirt and muck of what humans can be in order to see what humans are and are able to be. A young poet named Caitlin Seda wrote a response to Emily Dickinson's poem. It's titled, "Hope is not a bird, Emily, it's a sewer rat." Hope is not the thing with feathers that comes home to roost when you need it most. Hope is an ugly thing with teeth and claws and patchy fur that has seen some shit. It's what thrives in the discards and survives in the ugliest parts of our world, able to find a way to go on when nothing else can even find a way in. It's the gritty, nasty little carrier of such diseases as optimism, persistence, perseverance, and joy, transmissible as it drags its tail across your path and bites you in the ass. Hope is not some delicate, beautiful bird, Emily. It's a lowly little sewer rat that snorts pesticides like they were lines of coke and still shows up on time to work the next day, looking no worse for the wear. This is a hope I know better. This is the hope that I know from the depths of my own depression, clawing and scratching my way back. Not alone, with quite a lot of help, but back. Hope is the thing I know from every protest I ever almost got arrested at, or did get arrested at. Hope for me is me who has never climbed a fence in my life, frantically pulling my way up a fence on the side of a highway in Berkeley, California, because we had been on the highway for a while and now the cops were coming and it was time to get out of Dodge. I did not make it over the fence, actually, but I did miss the kettle that got most of the other people arrested. And what that let me do is go and pick them up in the morning when they were free. Hope is rough. H. Leslie Foster II, who some of you got to meet and see a platform from over the summer, is one of my best friends and one of my favorite visual artists. One of the first films of his that I saw was an experimental film on a ritual of hope. And in this film, there is a big tree and there are two dancers. And at all times, one of the dancers is connected to the tree by a big, heavy rope. And they fight to get away from the tree and then to get back to the tree, and the tree bleeds, and it's a very upsetting film. Hope for me is walking out of that and up to Leslie and going, Leslie, what the F was that? And knowing that it was something true about fighting your way into connection with something, fighting with your connection to something, and the real deep mess that is being alive and deciding to continue into the future. Hope isn't the thing that says, yes, it will definitely be fine, because it won't definitely be fine. I cannot stand here and tell you that everything will be okay, because I don't know that. I can't know that. But what hope tells me, what the grit and dirt and clawing of my own experiences as an individual and a member of communities tells me, is that if we can keep reaching out to one another, if we can keep in community with one another, we can answer the real and scary threats of our time with something that matters. The world's answer, nature's answer to death is life, to an end is a beginning. I have hope because every year trees shed their leaves and plants die, and then in the spring they come back. Over and over and over again, not necessarily the same each time, but still there. Because in hospitals all around the world, right now someone is dying and someone is giving birth. Because the end and the beginning are linked, and the world ends all the time. It ends in big ways and small ways. A person dies, an election happens, you get a new job, you quit a job, a relationship starts and a relationship ends, and always the two things together. Beginnings and ends pulling from each other. What's that 90s song say? Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. I have hope because when an asteroid killed the majority of the dinosaurs, it left space for birds and small mammals. Because matter is never created or destroyed, just being reused. Because every time the universe has a space where nothing could possibly be, what we find is something weirder and more alive than we ever could have guessed. I get a lot of hope from all the very weird marine creatures that live at depths that nothing should possibly be at, that are all themselves slightly red but don't know it because red light doesn't actually get that far down, that live around vents, that feed on the things that live around vents, that dive deep to get there and then come back up. I have hope because tardigrades exist somehow. If you're not familiar, a tardigrade is a little tiny creature that can survive apparently everything. They survive deep freezes. They survive the vacuum of space. They survive volcanoes. What are you doing, little tardigrade, and how? I have hope because mushrooms exist that eat the things that decay and turn that into life. I have hope because you're here. I have hope because you woke up this morning and you said, I should be with people. I should feed myself intellectually, spiritually, emotionally, all of those depending on how you feel about any of those words. Because you show up, because you make music and art, because you laugh. I have hope because I don't have a lot of choice about having it. I don't mean that as in I am required because it is my job to talk to you to have hope, though that is also true. I have hope because I'm convicted by it, because I'm stuck with it, because I shouldn't be possible. Because most of the people I love the most shouldn't be possible. Are combinations of experiences and identity that the world says cannot exist. I wrote a piece once for a short-lived digital magazine called Harlot, and my bio was a list of various identities that belong to me, and in the comments someone said, there is no way this person is real. What a gift. In response, one of the managers of that magazine wrote, they are real and we're paying them. Many of you are also people who maybe shouldn't exist, who the world says, that's not a way you can be, who think differently than many of the people you encounter in your day-to-day lives, who have lived lives unlike the normal life. Fun fact, almost nobody lives a normal life. As it happens, the beautiful thing about people is that they are all weird eventually. I have never met a single person who did not wind up being very strange after I talked to them for long enough. And that is one of those things that gives me a kind of hope that I cannot let go of, that I cannot be free of even on the days when I most want to be pessimistic and sure that nothing will ever be okay again. Pessimism, defeatist attitudes, they are incredibly compelling. In part because they're easy. Let me say that again. Defeatist attitudes are compelling in part because they're easy. It is easy to give up. It is easy to say something is more powerful than me and I will never be able to match it. It is easy to see what feel like they're not even just echoes of some of the worst parts of our history, but copies. Nazi rallies at Madison Square Garden. And want to fall over. And want to give up. It is easy to feel like there is nothing that could answer that in a way strong enough to keep what happened in the 30s from happening again. But that is what they want you to feel. That is, in fact, the entire purpose of doing politics in that way, of insisting that there is only one correct way to be and all other ways are naturally death. The point is to get you to give up. The point is to make you think that anything can ever be all the way over. It can't. Because let's be real, Madison Square Garden is not that big of a stadium. It's big, but it's not as big proportionately as it was in the 30s, right? A full Madison Square Garden with a much smaller population is a much scarier situation. But also, it is the case that is not normal. It is not normal to behave as if people who aren't like you are an attack on your existence. It is not normal, and we all know that I don't love normal so much, so take this. It is not normal, and not the position of someone who isn't scared, to insist so hard that you are correct, that you are good, when all of your actions give away that is not the truth. When you are not even the most competent fascists we've seen recently. I give thanks for incompetent fascists, though I would prefer no fascists at all. 8 years ago, I felt like Cassandra. Cassandra of Greek myth, who would tell the truth, would vision the future and constantly not be believed. Because I could say, hey, this is fascism. And the answer I always got was, well, do you even know what fascism is? Yes. And it's right there. I don't feel like Cassandra anymore. Because even some of the national media can say what we've all been seeing. I don't have to feel alone or in a small subset of people in my premonition about what could happen. Because we feel it together. And though it is scary, it is really scary and a genuine threat. We don't have to answer it alone. We don't have to answer it alone. We can go to the polls together, and we can show up for a vigil on Monday night together. And we can show up and eat pie together on Tuesday night and not have to live alone in that anxiety that pulls our shoulders up to our ears, makes us sore. Because the fact is that no matter what happens, there is work to do and people to do the work with. Because at the end of the day, we keep each other safe. At the end of the day, we care for our neighbors. We show up for each other. We send each other food and we care for each other. And when we need to, we provide each other sanctuary. I have hope because I know that in congregations around the country, asylum seekers have found sanctuary. Because I know that before gay marriage was legal, lots of us were performing them anyway. Because I know that before abortion was nationally legal, lots of people were performing them anyway. And though that is a scary situation, I know that no matter what the government does, what we do is up to us. That at the end of the day, your choice to show up for your family, for your friends, for your neighbors, for strangers means so, so much. There might be an asteroid, but I am a sewer rat. There might be an asteroid, but we are birds. There might be an asteroid, but luckily, none of us is a dinosaur. Right? I am not unafraid. I am afraid in some very, very real ways. And I'm sure that you are too. Because it does not matter what your background, what your identity, what your current working, financial, whatever situation is. This is scary. This is not what this choice should look like. It is scary to know that there are people who are so committed to these ideas of dominance, of violence, this entire politic of denigration. It is scary. And the only way they win is if you give up. The only way they win is if we give up. Because it does not matter what the laws are, what the government is, you can always do the right thing. You can always connect to your fundamental humanity, to your experience of being a living, breathing person whose body gets tense when it is stressed and aches when you have worked hard. A living, breathing person who has experienced the depth of sorrow and the highs of joy and who chooses to be with others when they do that. In this time, we elicit the best in one another by choosing to continue to show up, by choosing to stay in conversation where we can with people who are not actively dangerous to us, by choosing to make a painting or sing a song, by choosing to dance, by choosing to laugh and love and continue. People will talk about a revolution. And I always want to know what they mean. But for me, the strongest, most powerful revolution, the change most necessary, is to remember to keep seeing each other as people, as more than any list of identities, as more than where you came from, what you have. To choose to keep seeing each other as whole as possible. To choose to keep being with yourself as deeply as possible. To remember that we are always in a cycle, that things are always new and ending, that everything that ends becomes something that begins. I'll leave you with these words from Reverend Dr. Howard Thurman. Dr. Thurman was the minister of the first fully integrated congregation in the United States, the Church for the Fellowship of All Peoples in San Francisco. He wrote, "Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve, that in fair weather or in foul, in good times or in tempests, in the days when the darkness and the foe are nameless or familiar, I may not forget that to which my life is committed. Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve." May you keep fresh before you the moments of your high resolve, moments of connection and beauty and truth, the moments when you know who you are and why you're doing what you do. Choose to be together this week. Choose to breathe and move your shoulders away from your ears. Drink water, eat protein,